I love RoboCop. As a movie, RoboCop is simultaneously a brilliant satire of a horrifying social idea, the privatization of law enforcement, and an incredibly fun action-adventure. As a property, however, RoboCop has more than once reached the point of being the sort of thing that it originally lampooned. Something, live long enough to see yourself become the villain, whatever. But I get it. The way that first movie presents itself is so cool. Every role is perfectly cast. The feel of the 80s cop movies smushed into a science fiction world makes it stand out from a sea of other procedural films, and the bite of the setting is such that repeat viewings give you more to appreciate.
You picked the heart. Extended warranties, financing.
It also quadrupled its budget at the box office, and that, my friends, guarantees more. What we got was, they tried some things. A lot of things.
See you in hell, RoboCop!
RoboCop has, I kid you not, 2 theatrical sequels, 2 live-action television series, 2 animated television series, and of course, 1 big-budget remake. I know, I was surprised by all of this too. Please remain calm. Thing is, each subsequent product strayed further and further from what made the original movie so fun. RoboCop is an excellent movie because it sets out to be funny and to be engaging, and it succeeds at both. RoboCop 2 takes a dumb premise and gives you more of it. And, from there it gets kind of unnecessary. See, just because a fiction exists doesn't mean we need to know everything about it. We don't really need to see what RoboCop gets up to. Maybe RoboCop becomes Robo-Police Chief. Maybe RoboCop retires someday. Maybe RoboCop is gunned down in the line of duty. I don't know. I don't need to know either. Enter Polish developer Teon telling me that actually, hey, maybe you want minor RoboCop lore. Do you ever think about that? Maybe you want to see RoboCop in a way you've never seen him before. Maybe you just want to go on an adventure as everyone's favorite robot cop, RoboCop. What do you say? Give it a shot? I bought RoboCop Rogue City basically because of a review of a different game. Neryl talked about Teon's last movie adaptation project, Terminator Resistance, and I had intended for the longest time to pick it up and give it a shot based on that review. Thing is, I've never seen a Terminator movie. I have no affiliation with nor fondness for the Terminator brand and its many heads. This, admittedly, does slow down the lizard part of my brain that wants to play a game someone else thinks is interesting. But when I saw those madmen over at Teon were doing RoboCop next, boy, I couldn't wait. Because, again, I love RoboCop. And after seeing the jump in quality from their Rambo game to their Terminator game, I sort of figured RoboCop would logically be a masterpiece if it maintained that pace.
It's like the controls don't feel good, right?
Everything about this sucks, Vinny!
Feels good?
I expected something like Terminator Resistance, which is perhaps best compared to Far Cry as an example of what the game is trying to be, but to my surprise, Rogue City is actually a lot less like Far Cry and a lot more like Deus Ex Human Revolution. A lot more like it. In fact, in a weird way, RoboCop Rogue City is one of the better modern immersive sims I've played in a while. The game sort of surprised me out of the gate. It's baby's first Deus Ex. The progression is where RoboCop apes Human Revolution the most. You'll move from hub to hub, revisiting a couple of them 3 or 4 times, and each time will be slightly different. There'll be new environmental interactions, or side quests, or conversations to stumble into, or little things hidden in new places to keep you on your toes. There aren't a lot of systems at play here, and it's also worth noting that the design very much stays true to the idea that RoboCop is a walking tank. You can stride into rooms full of guys and take out several while they just rain bullets on you. You'll need to watch your health, but RoboCop is not nimbly moving about the environment, using cover and conserving ammunition. Combat encounters are kind of like a simple boomer shooter, with the objective being as much carnage as you can dole out without losing all of your health. But health pickups and charging stations are plentiful, meaning you'll rarely, if ever, run out of ways to get yourself back in fighting shape. Moving through these sections is straightforward enough, with clear paths that lead to the destination and only rarely having options for moving about the environment differently, most of those only leading to a pickup or upgrade parts. RoboCop is not JC Dentoning his way through the air vents, he's RoboCop. He's walking in there, sponging the damage, and shooting people in the face and or penis. It's what he does. As nice as it is to have reasons to explore these side rooms, the upgrades you find are only kind of worth hunting for. There are really only two progression systems in the game. You will gain skill points by accruing experience through doing side objectives, discovering evidence of crimes, and generally playing the game. These can be spent on a number of straightforward skill trees that each have 3 perks that unlock once enough points have been assigned to them. The game does not do a good job explaining these to you, though.
With this buggy brain of yours, you think you still remember how to put the heat on them scumbags?
I prefer to serve justice cold.
The psychology skill, for instance, when maxed, quote, lowers the outcome threshold for main characters. What does that mean? I think it means that certain requirements for NPCs being happy at the end of the game are lower, but that's really only a guess and also something I'm only inferring after finishing the game. I need that clarified. Or just general examples of what the skills do. Some of the perks unlock active abilities with keybinds, but they aren't explained super well. One thing RoboCop should have taken from Deus Ex's design philosophy were the video clips that play when you're considering which augmentations to unlock. RoboCop doesn't have access to as many skills as Adam Jensen does in either of his games, but additional clarity here is a simple thing that is just missing. There is, however, a pretty neat little upgrade puzzle for your primary weapon. As you play, you can find PCBs that have different slots on them. You can have one active in your gun at a time and slot in chips to direct the power in certain ways to influence how the PCB affects your weapon. There are nodes that will weaken you, so you want to route the power in such a way that you avoid those while still maximizing the positive node's effects. It's a clever way to gamify what otherwise is a pretty basic upgrade system. At the end of the day, it's just percentage upgrades to basic stuff, damage, magazine capacity somehow, and so on, but this little puzzle element makes it more engaging without being a chore. I like it. It does sort of trivialize other weapons, though, which makes some degree of sense. With how powerful your primary weapon is, it's kind of interesting you can even pick up and use weapons enemies drop. The PCB upgrades only apply to your 3-shot sidearm, not anything you collect, and you can only hold one other weapon at any time. There's room to improvise here because of the other weapons, and some levels giving you access to a scoped heavy arm or sniper rifle means more options in those combat encounters, but more often than not, you're gonna be using the gun you keep in your leg. I also hope you like the telltale 3-shot stir of Alex Murphy's famous sidearm, because whenever you get to a boss fight, you're gonna hear it a lot. There are maybe 3 actual boss fights in the game, and 2 of them are the same boss in different environments. Spoiler alert for nobody, both of them are Ed 209. These guys take too much damage. They are bullet sponges, boy. In both fights with Ed 209, I found a safe spot and just kept firing into the thing's weak point. Problem is, even with a well-upgraded gun and getting to a place where I didn't need to worry much about movement, I was just drilling bullets into the thing forever. It makes boss encounters an absolute slog. I really think that either these guys need a rework to be a little more interesting mechanically, or, much more likely, need to have those health bars nerfed. As they are, fights that are supposed to feel like epic standoffs feel more akin to doing laundry. Look, this is one of those games that you can tell did not have the highest budget, but it really made the most of what they did have. Systems that could be boring are given a little spin to make them interesting, like the PCB puzzles. Areas are reused, but with changes that make it fun to walk around them again to see what's going on. And that kind of brings us to the other part of the game. The action segments are really only half of your playthrough, with the other half being dedicated to moving around central hubs, the police station and the streets of Detroit primarily, and finding new side objectives when you come back each time. There are decent sections of this game you play without engaging in combat much, if at all. It's kind of cool to see RoboCop being so much of an Alex Murphy. He's a dorky Boy Scout kind of guy out there trying to do what's right despite his own personal issues, and it's kind of cute. One thing I really need to get into about this game is how it goes out of its way to focus on the human side of RoboCop, which I know sounds a little woo-woo, but hear me out. In the movies, the fact that Alex Murphy is still inside of RoboCop is played with here and there. RoboCop experiences Murphy's memories, starts feeling emotions because of Murphy's residual personality, and so on. More than once, the human part of RoboCop is explored, but it's never really the point. It's just a way to influence the character into doing what he needs to do to keep the plot moving. But in Rogue City, it's a central theme. Between missions, you'll talk with a therapist that has been assigned to you in order to monitor pesky glitches that manifest themselves as Alex Murphy's memories. Simple dialogue options allow you to sort of choose how you see yourself. As a person, a robot, or an amalgam of both the robotics of RoboCop and the humanity of Alex Murphy. If you've seen and liked the movies, which you probably have if you're playing the RoboCop game in 2023, you probably already think of RoboCop as a person. Again, it's something they explore a bit to get things moving. Here, though, when you're confronted with pretty human questions about the things you've just experienced while working as a police officer, it becomes something interesting. The game isn't slapping you on the wrist and saying, "No, dummy, he's a real live guy in there," pretending that there's a right answer to the existential question, RoboCop, who is he? Instead, it's asking you what you think this creature is. If Alex Murphy is Frankenstein's monster, then how do we classify him? By the contents of his brain or the material of his body? It's neat. It adds humanity to the central character, allows for a bit of role-playing for the player, and you get to say that your RoboCop game features the first ever depiction of RoboCop actively dealing with his trauma. A lot of the more human moments in the game come from the side quests. Some of them, particularly ones you pick up when you visit the police station, are very simple. There's one where you walk around collecting signatures for a get well soon card. Please remember that you weigh the same as a Chevy Silverado and have twice as much horsepower. But still, you get to experience RoboCop dorkily walking around on his hydraulic-ass legs, making all kind of a ruckus just moving, asking his coworkers to sign a card. On paper, it sounds stupid. And that's because it is stupid. But it's my kind of stupid. RoboCop is a cartoon character with a robot plug-in sound effect voice and a giant silver body. And here he is just doing everyday office stuff. Not just the police officer investigation shtick, but the boring stuff that comes with the job too. Like running a line in the lobby to process requests, or carrying a drunk guy down to the holding cells. It'd be easy to shake my fist and shout, "Ah, useless padding!" But here's the thing, it is padding, yeah, but it's definitely not useless. Teon thought about their ideas for what a RoboCop game could or should be, decided that the best approach would be something in the 12 to 15 hour range, and then set out to make the best 12 to 15 hour RoboCop game they could. There are not hundreds of side quests in RoboCop, there are like maybe 20. It is not open world, nor does it allow you to truly backtrack. The story keeps moving forward and time keeps moving forward, and you don't have to do everything. You move from area to area, presented as sort of levels, if you will, and you eventually get to the end of the game. You don't have to grind to increase RoboCop's damage modifier so you can get through the next boss fight that you'll have to try 10 times before you really get what's going on mechanically. You can just do 20% extra damage. Does it make a difference? I guess. If you aren't getting headshots constantly, like some kind of guy who's good at video games.
Barely made it.
You can fire this up on a Friday and play it pretty hard over the weekend and be done before going to bed Sunday night with that existential dread that the cycle is about to repeat. Like I said, the side quests aren't critical, but they do impact a thing or two. There are different outcomes for a handful of characters in the game, including who ultimately wins a mayoral election, and those outcomes are influenced by your participation in a couple side quests and dialogue choices. As far as I can tell, it doesn't really change anything mechanically, it just impacts the PowerPoint presentation you're given at the end of the game about what your choices amounted to. You know how it is. Something that sort of came to me as I was playing through these side quests is that you really do get to see RoboCop as a human being because of them. If you played this game beelining from one action segment to the next, like some kind of murder machine, you'd miss out on these character moments. Effectively, playing RoboCop as a justice-serving tyrant of the law means your RoboCop playthrough is going to feature less of the human stuff. Maybe that's a good thing. Engage with it if you want and be rewarded with something less tangible for your time, or forget about it and play the shooter where you're a tank and there's some environmental interaction. In one quest, a younger police officer joins the force, and because he was hired by OCP instead of the police chief, the other officers haze him. But you, as RoboCop, can march in and be like, "Come on, guys, not cool. He's kind of a tool, but he's trying his best." And this whole dynamic can build over a couple side quests if you keep interacting with this younger officer. RoboCop even takes him out on field training and is giving him little tips from his experience as a cop. And this happens while you search a building for a missing cat. Again, RoboCop searches for a missing kitty and is giving a police pep talk to the freshman who got bullied. When I pick up a game called RoboCop Rogue City and play the first level, just blowing body parts off guys and spraying blood everywhere and all that mess, I do not expect to play a work dad to a nerd being picked on by his peers, but I got that, and I want to say I'm really happy about it. Teon went out of their way to make a lot of human moments for RoboCop to experience, and this carries over to their overall game design philosophy. Little things here and there, like NPCs being lined up to talk while you walk to an objective, or giving you a phone call conversation to listen to while you walk back out of a building, show that the people who made this were really trying their best with it. And I think that's super admirable, super cool, and also still not what I was expecting out of the RoboCop video game at all. In all honesty, I figured this would be a boring clone of Doom 2016 with less interesting enemy variety and a brand that I enjoyed slapped onto it. But instead, it's a pretty cool clone of Deus Ex with a movie's energy to it, carried by not overstaying its welcome and having fun with the source material. Completely sideswiped all of my preconceived notions, gave me a really fun ride, and let me off nice and cleanly when it was over. I do wish that the game had a new game plus, another thing to have taken from Human Revolution. There's no way you're going to max out all of your skills in one playthrough, and I think it'd be neat to wrap back around with 4 or 5 maxed out skills, see more of the little stuff those skills actually affect, and get the satisfaction of completely filling out all of the skill trees. I don't think it added too awful much to the experience, but I would have enjoyed another run through like that. Maybe for a challenging achievement like Human Revolution's Foxiest of the Hounds. I wish more games had fun little, you beat the game, now here's something to dick around with stuff. Like the infinite ammo guns in Resident Evil, or just being able to go through again while completely overpowered. Not having that won't be something I really hold against RoboCop Rogue City, but if you're watching this and work on games, please put stuff in your games to make me feel like a god after I finish it. It's fun. Let me break the whole thing open after I finish the intended content. Why not? Oh, and also, if you work at Teon and somehow see this, please put a manual save button in the game. I don't trust autosaves. I have worked with computers for a living, and I know how often they like to not work correctly for me in particular. Even if it's really just to soothe my nerves, come on now. Put a save button in there. It'll make everybody happy. You can do it. RoboCop is an incredibly fun action movie, and RoboCop Rogue City is an incredibly fun, well-paced video game. It may not have all the flash and circumstance of bigger budget shooters, but really, that's true to the source material. RoboCop exists because a bunch of people who were really good at what they did worked together and crafted something meaningful and fun out of a pretty dumb base idea. It had just over a third of Blade Runner's budget and managed to make a cool 10 million more at the box office. It's a simple movie, done expertly by craftsmen working within their means. And frankly, you can say the same about RoboCop Rogue City. It's a simple game, done expertly by craftsmen working within their means. And when my attention is considered a luxury and larger games will give me hours of nothing to do just to keep me in front of them, that's both refreshing and welcome.
Ugh, all they're playing are sequels. I hate sequels. Why didn't you come up with something original?
I completely agree.